I knew that GAO had a bad apple. I knew who I was. I knew that I wanted to protect the agency. An agency that's number one in DEIA, I am going to fight to the core to make sure that this element does not stay at this agency. I'm just so blessed that I was able to find the Potomac Legal Group and get them on this case. We received a new Chief Learning Officer in April of 2019. I was promoted to a director 2 years before this new Chief Learning Officer came, and I was so young. In those 2 years, the other directors and I developed an amazing rapport, and I'd worked with them even prior to me being promoted. So when the new CLO came on board, and clearly her behavior was so vastly different to me then, and at that point, it was 3 other white older directors. The CLO, was white. I was, the gay Middle Eastern young one in the group. Immediately when she came on board, she asked about my name. My name is Skylar Heavans. And she goes, Skylar Heavans, that's a unique name. And I told her I am born of Iranian, Indian, and Pakistani parents. My birth name, was Heavan, but when we came to the States, we Americanized it. Heavan means heaven and earth. So mom came up with Skylar. And then she asked, how long did I live, in Iran and so forth. And I noticed that as I was speaking, something was happening, with her mannerisms and her approach towards me. And after I, spilled my beans about my background, I wanted to find out about her. But she immediately shut down. She didn't share anything about herself. This is what happened. There are 5 directors. We all have major endeavors and projects going on. I had 3 award-winning programs. Within 3 months of her arrival, she scheduled a meeting to tell me that she was canceling all 3 of my programs. Now, I was warned that that was coming, and I said, okay, we'll cancel it. I'm a team player, but my colleagues knew as to how hard I worked to get those programs running, and it didn't make any sense. So when I was given the news that all 3 of my programs were being cut, I was like, I don't need to meet with her. I got the news and I will execute it. No, she demanded to still meet with me. At the meeting, she shared that all these things were being canceled, really did not give a reason. She threw me a curveball in asking me, okay, I'm canceling these things, what are your thoughts? And I explained to her what my thoughts were. At that moment, I was very hurt and upset, but in a very cool, collected way, I explained to her how her decisions were not making any sense, and that her approach to these decisions, and I used Government Accountability Office phrases. I said her actions did not demonstrate people values. That really upset her. And also in those 3 months, her behavior changed after she found out about my background. She would skip over me in meetings. She would tell me, I don't understand you. I would then reiterate what I was saying, and she would not understand me. I would speak to my colleagues. How can I communicate better to my new Chief Learning Officer? But she was incredibly rude and dismissive. There are 5 directors. There's me, 3 other white female directors, and 1 elderly white male director. At these meetings, she would vent about her previous agency that she had come from. And she kept using, this man kept making my life miserable. This man, she kept being so gender specific. So when she was treating me so poorly, the other directors felt like, is it because of my sex that it was uncomfortable and whatnot? But I brought that up to my fellow directors. I was like, look, she keeps bringing up this man. Is this another reason why she's canceling my programs? Is this another reason why, she hates me? But they eventually privately, I guess, talked to her, and she stopped talking about, a man. Then I was left out of email chains. So we're part of distribution groups. In the distribution group, she was taking me out of it. So there were things that were happening to my 2 departments. She was taking me out of emails and decisions. So at meetings, I was left out of the dark. work. And at certain times, she made me feel incompetent because I should have known this. But how would I know this if you are not adding me to these correspondences? So the directors were very aware of that. And the first year of the new CLO, it was very rough. But then the second year got a lot better because the other directors stood up for me. And then the third year, it got worse. My main colleague director was out on sick leave for 2 months, and that's where things got pretty bad in 2021, which was the third year of the CLO. She eventually did get her way in the third year in removing me out of the directors' meetings, which was highly illegal, and it was part of the retaliation case that was not for her, to do, and it was unjust. There were just so many things. And like I said, she had this ability to make me incompetent. I'm always a high performer. In federal agencies, there's always appraisals and assessments. I'm always someone who liked to get the highest points. And prior to her, I got the highest scores in my appraisals. But the first year in 2019, she forced one of the directors to put this really negative statement in my appraisal. It was about disagreeing with her when she had canceled my 3 programs. That is a big legal no-no. You don't put anything in someone's appraisal without coaching and time and reflection and so forth. Boom. This was the competency of working well with others. All of the others didn't matter. The fact that I had a disagreement with her, she pinged that into my appraisal. 2020 was a good year. 2021, things started to become worse. My fellow director went on surgery leave in May of 2021 for 2 months. She was a great buffer between the chief learning officer and I. And she was always able to calm the chief learning officer with anything that had to do with me. My fellow director and I, we tried to set myself and the entire department for success while she was out, because she knew that while she was out, I would be alone navigating these potholes and whatnot. But unfortunately, that did not work. So even in 2021, she tried to make me look incompetent in a chief suite meeting. At one point in a private meeting, she was reading an email of mine. As she was reading my email, she went into this Middle Eastern accent. And I found that highly offensive. I was like, well, why is that necessary that she needed to change accents? I again told her that she was lacking people values. Now, when I used those words in 2019 when she was hired, she did not like that. Now it was 2021, and it was the second time that I had to tell her that, look, your actions are lacking people values. And she did not like that. Basically, after that point, she went on this mission to make me highly incompetent in front of my customers, in front of my clients. And she did that very strategically. I went on a 2-week vacation in the summer of 2021, right when that other director was also on sick leave. During those 2 weeks, the CLO scheduled meetings with each of my staff members and tried to find out as to what kind of manager I was. I was unaware of these meetings. When I came back from my vacation, I saw a meeting request between the chief learning officer, another director, and myself. And immediately that put me on pause. I immediately responded back requesting that, please, could we have a mediator at this meeting? I'm uncomfortable. And remember that 2 weeks prior to that, before the vacation, she had mocked my accent. I told her about the people values thing. She tried to make me look incompetent. So I was totally not trusting of her. I didn't want to be in a private meeting with her, even though there was another director, but that other was a white older male. So I could not even, trust him. And she responded back via email saying, no, I'm the chief learning officer and this is mandatory meeting. So I knew what was going on. But basically at this meeting, she went on to tell me that she met with all my staff while I was away, and then here are the issues. She basically said that based on all these negative issues of you as a manager, by the way, everything she was mentioning, I was like, I was not part of that. To myself, I was not part of that. Oh, there's evidence against that. But I listened to her. And I think she was trying to egg me on because that other director could show, was I reactive? But I listened to her and she said, based on all of these negatives, we are going to revoke your telework application and we have to put all of this in your appraisal. After she said that, she was like, what are your thoughts? She kept asking me for my thoughts throughout each of the things. And I said, no, please continue on. I'm taking notes. Please continue on. And at the end, she was like, okay, that's it. Do you have anything to say? I said, thank you for bringing all of this to my attention. None of this is true. We're unfortunately going to have to investigate this because there's evidence against everything that you are proclaiming that I did. And I said, please note that you mocking my accent in the meeting prior to me leaving for vacation was highly unacceptable and it was hurtful. She didn't say anything at the meeting. I just ended with, time will tell and evidence will speak for itself. Immediately, right after the meeting, I contacted the Director of Employee Relations, immediately filed a grievance. I knew that GAO had a bad apple. I knew who I was. I knew that I wanted to protect the agency. An agency that's number one in DEIA, I am going to fight to the core to make sure that this element does not stay at this agency. In September of 2021, internal investigation started. So the investigation started in September. I alerted the investigators. Her probation is ending in April of 2022. It would be to your interest that you would finish this investigation prior to a 3-year probation, because after the 3-year probation, it would get much more difficult. After I filed the grievance and I provided all my evidence to the employee relations group and to the EEOC investigators in the agency, the CLO had accused me of a lot of things that I had not done. But within that short amount of time, there were at least 4 big things I could immediately prove that I had nothing to do with. Still, they decided to move me to another department. And I grained against that. I even asked, I said, why shouldn't the chief learning officer be moved to another department? I've proven my innocence. And the employee relations director, and I remember she chuckled. She was like, well, Ardavan, the CLO is a CLO and an SCSer. You, on the other hand, you do have complementary skills in this other department. So that's why we're moving you. And I said, makes no sense. I have proven my innocence on these things. I've shown discrimination. I've shown proven retaliation. And y'all are still making this choice. And they're like, yes. Well, what happened? In March of 2022, 2 weeks prior to her 3-year probation, she made an announcement that she's leaving the agency. No one knows, was she reprimanded? Was she fired? What we hear from the other attorneys through DOJ is that she, during the 6-month investigation, she knew the writing was on the wall. And so she made other plans just to move to another agency. So right before her 3-year probation, right at the end of the 6-month investigation, she exited. But I continued on with my grievance because she had done so much non-monetary damage to my appraisals and to my reputation. I'd become so unhealthy, gained so much of weight. And then January 2022, I hired Potomac Legal Group. Even though she was let go in March of 2022, I couldn't let go of the suit because of the damage. And then we basically settled in March of 2024, recently.